Welcome back to Big Red Rant, where we could not wait any longer. We know we're only approaching week 1, but we had to look ahead to week 2. It's just that big of a game. This video might really bite us in the ass as we are making a prediction that could turn up poorly. But we've got a few reasons why we actually think the Huskers are going to beat Colorado week 2. Tell us what you guys think in the comments, though. Who's going to get the first laugh in this Rule versus Dion rivalry? Gary. Reason number 3, we are getting a crack at Coach Prime's team early in his tenure of Power 5 football. He's not playing against Alcorn State anymore. Week 1, they play TCU. They'll likely be coming off of a loss, and their hype should have gone down a little bit from the preseason and pre-week 1. Do you think Dion is going to struggle adjusting to coaching Power 5 football?
I think the team, and I know we'll get to it, is going to take a while to gel and get the system and everything. People say the same thing about our squad, but I think if you take away the hype that surrounds Dion, and no matter what he does, football, actually playing, commentating when he's on NFL Network, coaching or whatever, and you just strip it down to a coach going from FCS to FBS, I don't see or hear the concern or the cautions of, okay, this is like the minors to the big leagues type of a deal. And then I really don't hear people comparing the fact that he was pulling recruits that would have gone to Georgia and Ohio State and stuff like that into that league against that competition. I don't feel like a lot of the advantages and lopsidedness is going to be in his favor, at least early on. If he can do some things and keep getting recruits and keep having guys learning through the system before they're playing instead of throwing everybody together, he's going to have to be a lot better or a lot more X's and O's savvy. And maybe he is. I'm not saying he's not. But that's going to have to be bigger and more influential on his team than the witty press conferences and the flashy internet Twitter show, whatever they run, and the one-liners and all the things that everybody loves Dion for. That's great. That gets guys to come in. That gets a lot of hype around a school that's been surprisingly worse than us for the last couple years, but it's not going to win games. You're going to have to actually be that good of a coach, and that encompasses everything. That encompasses your recruiting, which he seems to have down. That is the X's and O's. That's preparation for game. That's building the culture. All the things that it looks like and he talks about, but we're going to see it, and we're going to see it on a far bigger scale than what was happening before when he was at Jackson State.
Reason number 2 that supports the Huskers pulling out a win is the thought that this crowd is going to be, at best for Colorado, 50-50. So it's likely going to be just as loud for the Huskers as it is Colorado, so they don't get that advantage of being the home team because they're border states. It's so easy for Husker fans, which already travel greatly, to just slide on through. Do you think that's going to play a part?
I think the crowd is not going to be what Dion and the AD and a lot of people think. We've heard a lot of hype from early on, like, don't sell your tickets to Husker fans. There's only going to be so many, whatever, the way tickets or however they do it. I think they're all greatly underestimating the way Nebraska fans travel and show out. That being said, they can talk about that and have that as an idea and a game plan. But if you buy a ticket, they're already jacking the cost of the prices for that game way high. But the crazy part of Nebraska fans is that, okay, we'll still pay that or we'll pay more or whatever. Like it'll be a whole big deal where people will stack into Sprinter vans and, Suburbans and whatnot and drive out there. It'll be a whole big thing. That the price isn't going to be a big deal. I think it's going to be more dependent on how Nebraska looks against Minnesota and possibly how Colorado looks against TCU in week 1. Colorado's fan base is nowhere in the stratosphere of Nebraska's. So if you think asking them, let's keep Nebraska out, or we're going to bump these ticket prices up, that sounds good, and there can be all the hype around Dion and the new team and get the fans really excited. But if you're not at heart that diehard fan, and you can make however much money on a ticket because you got some crazy Nebraska fans that are willing to pay it and come up, like, are they really going to go, nope, I'm not going to make this much money. I'm not going to do whatever. Now all of a sudden I'm a diehard. We're going to sell out stadiums, sell out games every Saturday and do it. I just don't see that happening. Maybe if this was another year of Frost, that would make a little more sense. But Nebraska fans way more passionate and way bigger fan base than Colorado is, and we're in the same transition stage they're in. We got a new coach with a new system. We feel like it's our time to break out. A lot of people are hyped about the transfer guys we've got, also the recruits we've got. There's just by the fan base difference alone, there's way more excitement around Nebraska's year than there is Colorado's. The media is happier and more excited and gassing up Colorado's because of Dion, and I understand that makes sense. He's a more polarizing guy than Matt Rule is, but when it comes down to who's going to buy tickets and who's going to be willing to sell their tickets, I think it's going to be at best a 50-50 game for Colorado. And I said that could change depending on how each team shows out in week one, but I would fully expect at worst a neutral site, so to speak.
I think you're definitely right about if they lose week one, the likelihood of them keeping Nebraska fans out goes down because there will be less excitement. And then, we'll probably get plenty of Colorado fans in the comments that are refuting this point. So be it. That's fair. And an argument I could see them losing is look how great their turnout was for their spring game. It had never been like that. So maybe that carries over and the excitement of Nebraska. I mean, imagine if all they have to really do is look good against TCU and they're going to be super excited, as well they should be.
Or imagine if they beat TCU.
And if the Huskers beat Minnesota week one, that game will be the biggest game in the Huskers' last 5 years, hype-wise.
I mean, maybe.
Hype-wise.
The one kind of rebuttal of like comparing the spring game, because you're right, and that's what comes with the hype, but nobody except for Colorado fans are buying those tickets. And nobody was offering people who bought those tickets double what they bought them for. You know what I mean? So you're already going to have the amount of Husker fans that are going. And then depending on how that first week plays out, or you just spur the moment, whatever, as it gets closer. Colorado's fan base to me is predominantly, and like you said, we're killed in this comment section for sure. And that's fine. I'm cool with it. But I'm just saying the majority. I'm not saying every single fan, but their majority of their fans, they're going to be fans to the extent of the hype. So like you said, if they beat TCU, they're going to be super excited. They're all going to want to be there. If they lose, we'll see what happens as the season plays on. If they keep losing, they'll be the same fan base they've always been. But Nebraska is going to be, either way, doing what they can do to get to that game, especially if we look good against Minnesota. And there's even that builds on the Nebraska hype train going into that week too.
Now for number one, the biggest reason that you think the Huskers are going to beat Colorado week two is the fact that Colorado has so many new players that have been there for such a short period of time. Sipple and Callahan were joking that they don't even know each other yet, all of them.
I don't think it's a joke. I honestly think that many players in that short of time, there's got to be a lot of figuring out who your teammates are to do yet.
And Dion will say, that's right, I wanted that turnover. I had to get all these bums out of here so I could get some new primetime players in. And maybe he's right. But learning a new system, all that goes into that, I think the Huskers have the edge too, because we have a lot of actually good talent coming in. I actually do believe here's where I'm willing to buy the Kool-Aid and buy the hype, is that I do think the Huskers have talent. They just had such terrible coaching. They weren't getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
And they still have a lot of that talent left over. There's just more consistency on the roster. Am I overlooking something with that?
I think you're spot on with what you're saying. I think like the things we've talked about for a while, I feel like the media is so obsessed with the Dion hype that they're overlooking things like this. We went back and looked through the transfer portal for Colorado and just kind of skimmed through it. They're not bringing in 4 and 5 star studs. I mean, they're getting some 4 stars, don't get me wrong. And then, like I mentioned, when we were talking about the number one topic of the move from essentially lesser competition to Power 5 coaching, when you have the number one overall recruit last year, 2 years ago, whatever it was, and you bring him with, like, that's an exception. But when you're talking about 51 new guys coming in, the vast majority of them are 3-star players, and a lot of them are coming from smaller schools like that. There's a handful of guys coming from Jackson State. There's guys from Maine and Liberty and these smaller schools, and that doesn't mean they're not any good. I'm just saying that you're not taking 50 4- and 5-star guys from Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia, right? And then you factor in the learning curve, the cohesiveness that you have to get. Like, they don't have this culture built, and you're adding these guys that are coming into this good culture, and just learn the scheme, right? Just learn the system, and you learn your position or whatever. You're trying to create a culture with guys that just showed up a couple weeks ago. And while you're trying to create that culture, you're trying to implement your system. And a lot of your coaching staff are guys from different jobs over the last couple years. It's not like, and this could be an argument against what I'm saying, but like when Frost came, he brought his entire coaching staff. Dion brought a lot, but you've got guys that have coached NFL, other colleges, been up and down over the last couple years. So now they've had more time. The coaches have had more time to work together and implement how their systems are going to go, and decide how they're going to make the culture, learn from Dion what the culture is going to be and things like that. But it's not instilled. It's not already an existing thing in the locker room. And then you bring in basically half of a new team, and they don't know what you've been teaching or coaching the last however many months. So now you're trying to catch them up. I feel like there's just way too many moving parts. And it sounds nice to go, yeah, we completely revamped our roster. We're way better than we were. On a talent level, I don't doubt that at all. I'll bet you anything you want to bet. Talent-wise, Colorado's going to roll out a better, more athletic, skilled team than they have the last few years. But I don't think the talent level is going to be the gap that you saw Jackson State have above everybody else in their conference against these teams that Colorado's going to play. It might be more comparable, but being comparable talent-wise is not the same thing as having culture instilled systems that guys have learned for 3 or 4 years, or 2-3 years, and now they're finally playing it, or they've been playing it for 3 or 4 years, and this is the best version of them you're going to see, and the best version of the system, and the best version of the culture. Like, all of those things are still in the process of being made, and by the time they play, you're going to have guys that have been in the program for a month. I don't think that's being brought up enough. I don't think that's being critiqued the way it would be if it was almost any other coach, even a more prominent or sought after coach like Luke Fickell, right? If Luke Fickell went from Cincinnati to Colorado and did the same thing Dion's doing, there'd be some hype. It wouldn't be the level that it is that you're getting from Dion. And there would be a lot more, well, yeah, that's nice to get these guys, but you're still trying all the things we're saying, right? They would be covering that and bringing that up a lot more. And I feel, and maybe they are, if you're more, I'm not constantly looking for and digging through Colorado media like I am Nebraska, but I do for sure try to keep an eye on it and follow. Like, I've always loved Dion growing up. I know you think I'm just taking the opportunity to hate on him, but like, he's literally the reason, like, I wanted to wear 21 and all that stuff, wanted to go from receiver to playing corner, safety. I get all of the hype and things like that, but it's just, I don't feel like he's getting the criticism that somebody without all that flash and hype would be getting. Or not even criticism, just honest, neutral opinion, like pros and cons, right? Like, I don't feel like nationally what I'm hearing, or like the little places I find things, I don't feel like there's like, well, yeah, but you got to be careful because you're in the big leagues now, or you're still putting a team together even though the talent's better. Like, I don't hear that near as much as I hear all the hype and the positive and good things. And I don't know, man. I think that it's a lot of that's drastically being overlooked.
Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Huskers are going to get this win week 2, or will Coach Prime be victorious? Thanks for hanging out. See you guys next time. Go Big Red.